Yeah. So, hi everyone. This is Dr. Bot starting the live again, like a true product manager that tries best. And it happens as it happens. I clicked the live button for the last 5 minutes. We were talking. We introduced ourselves, and unfortunately, I had to notice that there's no one on the stream, and we are starting a bit late. I'm very sorry for that. And I now notice I have to click the go live button twice. So for those of us who are joining us despite us being slightly late, thank you for your patience. Hope you will now, most of you join from the pop-up. So to tell you what we're going to do today, I'm Dr. Vlad, I'm the host of this live, and we'll be thinking big, like every product manager should, by discussing how localization and having your product in your local language is very important. And to do that, I have three awesome guests from Alkenos to help us. And starting with Alex, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Bart, for inviting me to this podcast. I will do my best to share all my experience I have in localization. I've been running Alkenos as the CEO and the founder for almost 20 years and gained lots of experience. I just want to share, so that this is me here. And also, I'm a product manager in my heart because I started as a software developer and product manager, and then I just transferred to localization.
Ilya?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm on the sales side of things, the LSP, right? I'm very happy to be able to speak with very diverse clients and businesses almost on a daily basis. I learn from the best, and I try to share as much as possible whatever I know with the rest. Hopefully, I'll be able to provide this, customer angle on some points that we'll be discussing today.
And last but not least, Stas, hi. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Hello, guys. I'm Stas. I'm the manager of the localization team here at Alkenos. We have about 30 people in the team. We're doing localization projects, helping other companies and businesses grow. I started out about 15 years ago as a loc manager, and throughout my career, I leveled up. So here I am, doing both team management, and I have a hands-on experience on localization projects still.
Awesome, thank you. And perhaps it's a good thing that we have a do-over, because I felt that when I did an intro on our dry run that we didn't know it's dry, the intro was slightly too long. So to make it shorter this time, as a product manager who worked in Skype, in a language chatbot company, and also in cross-country job board, I saw how localization is important and how it can elevate the user experience. But rather than tell you about my experiences now, I'd like to ask the professionals. So, guys, why do you believe that localization is such a critical component for international product success?
Well, I would divide the answer into two parts. So there is an obvious part and then not very obvious part. That is my thoughts. So the obvious one is this statistics say that 75% of users, they prefer to buy products if they are localized into their languages. And we only have only 20% of internet users that use English as a native language. So if we add like 10 more languages, then we cover almost the whole planet, like 75 to 80% of languages. Also, there are some regulated industries that require the translation. And take, for example, if you translate a medical software into to sell it in Germany, you must translate it into German language. That's obvious, but that's required by law. That's obvious. That's obvious. Everybody knows. Everybody knows this. But I have some other thoughts on this matter. So it's a matter of brand quality perception. So this expectation of users, they expect that if they deal with a quality brand. They expect that they will receive the experience on their own language. If I buy Sony PlayStation, I'm sure it will be localized. So if I deal with a good brand like Microsoft or Apple or Tesla, I expect that it will be localized and the quality localized. If the localization is poor, then this makes this feeling of cheap things. Good brands are not cheap, and also. So this is expectation, and it's a matter of comfort. Reading in your native language, reading just requires less mental effort. So if we, as product managers, want to think about the user's comfort, about they have this best experience using our products, we translate, and we just require less mental effort of millions of people using our apps or websites. This is a respect to user. So this respect and trust, to build trust with our customers, is crucial in international expansion. So just this is what I think about translation importance.
So as a product manager, CEO, and an expert in translations, in your experience, what's the biggest misconception for that product managers have about the localization process?
Well, there are some. There are a lot, but I would mention like 3 or 5. Lots of them. Might be the first one is that we sometimes think that localization is small. You have the product, you have your app, for example, and you just think that localization of the app is just translating the captions, the strings, resources, and that's it. But no, we always underestimate the scope, because a product is not only the app, it's also its marketing, and that's very important. So if we think about localization, we better use not the product localization, but user journey localization way of thinking. So when we sell the app, we market the app, we translate the product description, the website, the buying experience, and all that must be localized. And product managers that just do the product management, like working with designers and software developers, they sometimes underestimate. This is one of the misconceptions. Another one is very interesting, is about money. So localization costs money. It's always been so. And the budget of localization is not product development budget, but it's a marketing budget. And so you're a product manager, but there is a product marketing manager who would require your product be localized to sell it internationally. And so if you don't have a friend, if your product development and marketing they are not friends, then it's then it's a problem. And the marketing, they think about the ROMI, return on marketing investment, and they think about the localization is investment, and they always want to know the return on marketing investment, and that's hard. If we just translate to some language, how do we assess how do we know how much money it's driven back? Nobody knows. So this is the budget is nobody thinks about it. It's a misconception, and also their own planning. Product managers think that, well, we'll build a product and then we will localize it. Wrong. That leads to the products that are very hard to localizable. And another one is just interesting misconception is that sometimes we think that a language teacher or student or your colleague with the command of some language, or your friend or your users will translate your app with pleasure. Mm-hmm. Well, that's there are a few exceptions in the world in open source projects like Mozilla, but generally, this is just a dream. The localization is a hard work of professionals, and nobody does. No friend of you will translate it. So better be prepared to run several, at least 2 languages from the very beginning, not postpone, and none of the friends or users would be 100% be translating. So I would name those that come on top of my mind.
Can I add something, Alex, here? You mentioned, I mean, we are mostly focusing on the language aspect here, right? Localization, almost translation, right? But actually, it's far beyond that, right? And I just remembered I had a client which was a very big US-based financial
Ilya,
company.
can you interrupt you? Because I think that you're going into my next question. So than following up on Alex, we can also tell me, how does localization indeed go beyond just language to encompass culture, tone, and user expectations? But before you answer it, I want to highlight one important thing. Product management is this funny thing where you work for months on to release something, but the smallest detail can squash it. Bad marketing, bad single bug, or bad localization. If people can't use your product, they don't know how, it won't work. So there's a lot of minefield, and you as a PM, that's the challenging part, need to be aware of all those landmines and be ready, just like we just did with going live without not going live. Like that gets me back to when you didn't turn on an A/B test. Sorry for that interlude. Go ahead. Tell us how to encompass culture, tone, and user expectations with localization.
I think I'll later defer to Stan, who probably has more hands-on experience on that. But I just wanted to share a case with a client we had, which was a very large US company. They just wanted to localize into Japanese some user onboarding forms, right? They just said, look, let's just have those translated and just deal with it. But in reality, what happened is that our language team provided so much feedback on what actually needs to be included or excluded from those onboarding forms. Like, for example, there was an address field which was structured in a way that is not used in Japan, right? So the Japanese team said, look, we have these prefectures, we don't have states, obviously, and so on and so forth. What I'm saying is that just going one step beyond just language lies like a very, terra incognita in some cases, right? Where you can really adapt your product or your user experience, your buyer experience for each market, particularly, right? Stan, what's your take on this? I mean, I know there's quite a lot in terms of style and tone of voice. What is your experience with real life projects?
And to add to that, can you also tell me the most common mistakes that product teams make when localizing products?
Well, I was just about to add my 2 cents to what Alex was saying, that localization might be easy and you don't really have to outsource to have a localization company. You can do it by crowdsourcing your audience, your target users, if they know how to translate and if you have any past experience. So it just takes and costs you nothing, but you have to be experienced in crowdsourcing. So it doesn't take a localization company all the time. So this is one of the models. This is one of the ways to approach localization. So getting back to the points about the how localization is different from translation. So I guess that most of the audience here, they are very well aware that localization, professional localization, when it comes to product, is far beyond just plain translation, just because we have to consider many aspects. A short list I would just maybe mention is cultural aspect. You have to consider cultural and regional specifics of the language, of the locale that you're localizing into, which is, for example, which relates to proper internalization, which needs to be done before you start actually localizing the product, which is about date and time standards. You have to consider them. You have to consider the encoding, the fonts that you're going to use for this specific locale and language. You have to consider readability. That's why you need to make sure all the characters, all the the text they display correctly in the user interface or whatever they will display. You have to consider the content and the context, and that's why it's a very good idea to come up with a certain maybe glossary list of the do not translatables, those terms that don't need to be translated, or vice versa, they need to be translated in this language and stuff like that. Well, tone of voice, the way you approach your target audience, it differs and it varies a lot from language to language. The style, not to mention user expectations. I mean, the user interface itself, the layouts, the dimensions, the length of your user interface elements, the controls. As for example, if you're translating from English into German, you're most likely to end up having those kind of length issues where the names will not just fit the limits of the interface, and you have to consider it beforehand when developing the interface. Again, the text might go from left to right and vice versa, from right to left, like Hebrew, like Arabic languages. Legal compliance, some stuff like translating marketing campaigns, and when you're down to translating the terms like Black Friday into Arabic, for example, and this relates to any Muslim type of country, you have to consider the religious context, because you cannot translate it just directly as Black Friday, because you will need to translate it as White Friday, just a plain example. So lots of things when it comes to localization you need to deal with and properly plan ahead.
Well, as a person working in English and releasing mostly to German market, I feel the pain, maybe not in terms of dealing with local culture, but the fact that German language can have abominations that of words that have like 60 or 80 characters, just because like a ham and cheese sandwich is one word in Germany. So that can destroy any UI if you don't account for that.
Yeah, and by the way, I missed one of my favorites: jokes, humor, songs, literature, and things like that. When you have to translate
games, right? In game development, games are absolutely different story, right? It's absolutely different. It's actually partly why we're going to talk about that later. Partly why machine translation in AI is not still dominating this sphere. The localization when it comes to software, right, UI and products in general, and game dev, anything around game development. So this is one of the reasons. But we'll talk about that later.
I think, mentioned it somewhere already, but for Polish people, localization is so important, especially when we see like classic movie Shrek and Shrek 2, which were translated in a way that it adapted it to the Polish culture, Polish nuances, and because of that, the movie was far funnier for us in Polish than in English, just because of like using characters and mentions that only Polish people could recognize. But coming back to product management of it all, we all know that releasing new software, new updates is difficult, and there's lots of stop gaps that slow it down. So for some PMs, getting the translations, and sometimes for me too, well, can be something that can delay the release even more. How can PMs avoid such pitfalls, especially with juggling those tight deadlines? So how to incorporate it in the process?
This is a good one, and I think Alex touched base on that. And well, one of the things we need to consider is you don't want to dismiss localization as something that is minor, as something you can get like just before the release, right? We'll just, we had clients who said, look, we're releasing like next week, can you just have this translated and we'll just release it as it is, right? This is not the way to go. Because why is this so? If you look at the, let's say, we were talking about software here. If you look at the product company, software product company, the main product that needs to be localized is actually the software, the product. But beyond that, like as Alex mentioned rightfully, right, there is also marketing content. There is like web pages, right, landing pages. There's blogs. Right? This probably falls under the marketing kind of territory. Then you probably have documentation, right? Then you probably have support materials, like customer support materials, like help centers, FAQs, or what have you. You'll probably have emails, like if you're if you go into like a GTM, if you're doing GTM, go to market, you have localized ads, probably, right? Display ads, context ads, and so on and so forth, right? So as a product manager, if you're tasked with this kind of challenge to build a process, right, you need to start thinking about the stakeholders, who are actually the ones responsible for those pieces of content. How do I make sure that they are all aligned in terms of timelines, in terms of their expectation, in terms of style, tone of voice, in terms of glossaries, just to make sure that when you localize the product, the labels are translated in the same way that in the documentation, or that the tone of voice of, I don't know, your marketing communication, slide decks or what have you, is aligned with what you have on your website, right? So this is one of the kind of starting points, and you need to start really early. You start thinking about it at the prototyping stage, because at the prototyping stage is probably something that you will be doing is selecting the tech stack, right? The technical stack. For example, here working on a website, we're seeing a lot of startups using low-code and no-code solution these days. For example, I'm gonna, spin off a website in a couple of clicks and what have you. But is it localizable, right? It's probably not. And there are quite a lot of CMS systems, like content management systems, that the websites run on, that do not support localization out of the box, right? And you also you need to have that in mind. And when doing that, like when you launch your first website, or your first product, your first mobile app or software or SaaS, you want to do this thing called pseudo localization, which is not real localization. It can be like gibberish when it comes to translation, right? But that going through this process of actually making sure that it is supported in at least 2 languages will give you a much better understanding in terms of how do you structure it from the technical stack perspective. Because a lot actually depends on the developers, right? On the dev team, on the architecture. Because then down the line you will have challenges like, all right, this suddenly becomes continuous. It's no longer a matter of just having something translated once. It's usually a matter of having something translated continuously, right? Because your product will take off. Hopefully, you will add more content there, more features. And if you have 15, 20 languages, how do you make sure that this works continuously? That with every release, everything is localized, right? So you need to keep this in mind. And how does marketing follow? How do all these stakeholders follow, and so on and so forth, right? Another point I wanted to mention is when working with vendors or translators or in-house translators, linguists, right? You want to make sure that you communicate as much as possible and as good as possible the context and the tone of voice and whatever you need to communicate for the translator to actually feel how it needs to sound, right? To actually understand what they're actually doing. When it comes to software localization, you can at least provide screenshots, at least work on a style guide that, again, can be synced with your marketing team, right? Tone of voice and so on. At least provide some sort of a briefing kind of references that will tell the translation team, be it a vendor or in-house translation team, what is the product about, what kind of audience does it target, what kind of solution it is, and how does it communicate with its users. So this is very crucial, because you can have like the best of the best translators on your team, but unless they understand what they're actually doing, what they're actually translating, unless they understand how this particular, let's say, string is used within UI, they're not going to be able to produce a brilliant translation, right? So nobody knows your product as much as you do. Nobody loves your probably product as much as you do. You can't expect the translation team to love your product more than you do. So you want to make an effort here, right? So that's my take. There is a lot actually to talk about localizability, right? About how, from the technical perspective, you want to make sure that it works. I think we could talk about that for hours.
Let's talk for a few minutes, because that's actually my next question. And apart from the human element, how do you manage localization as a PM from the technical side? I mean, what software, workflows, or best practices to use? What do you recommend?
Well, I would like to ask Stan's help, but just my 2 cents is the translation industry has rarely been a hot topic, maybe apart from a couple of last years when ChatGPT LLM emerged, right? But otherwise, it was quite classic, right? The translators used to use certain tools like Trados, offline tools, and so on. Then there was, at some point, certain SaaS solutions started to emerge, like localization platforms, for example, which is basically a cloud-based solution where you can host all of your content that you can use to build your processes, where you can host all of your terminology, all of your language assets, all the context, where you can actually interact with people, right? And I think these kind of solutions, they become the core of modern local. They have long become the core of the modern localization workflows, right? So one of the first things to think of is would be to decide on the localization technology stack, so to say. For example, I want, as a product manager, as a localization manager, if there's such a role, I want to make sure that there is a unique or single source of truth for all of the translations. There is one place where all of the translators work. There's one place where all my teams or all of the stakeholders can actually log into and see, or maybe contribute, or maybe review, or maybe upload context or content for translation or tasks and so on. So you probably want to have it centralized, and for it to be able also, which is important, to connect to your content repositories, for example, to your CMS, to download content from for your website and upload it back. For example, with GitHub, right, for the software for your mobile app, right? Maybe to connect with your e-commerce infrastructure, your Shopify store where you sell something digital, right? And so on and so forth. So you want it to be very much connected, but you want it to be centralized. This is what I would do, like one of the first things. The other things I would consider is, do I want to build an in-house expertise, like an in-house team, which is kind of very expensive, but makes sense in some cases, right? Do I want to rely on in-house translators? Is it scalable enough for me to support 20 languages? Do I want to work with vendors, or one vendor or multiple vendors? Do I want to outsource some of the tasks to my distributors? So who is going to be actually doing the job, right? Because when we talked about your team is probably actually the one who knows the product the best. That's correct. And this is one of the reasons why some companies choose to have their people, their staff, translate for them. This is not always sustainable. It's usually better to have them review whatever a vendor or a translation team in-house or external have translated, and provide this kind of learning curve for the translation team. So let the professionals do most of the work, most of the dirty work, right? And just review and provide assets for them to improve. We're talking about style, terminology, and so on. So that would be my 2 cents. Stan, what do you think of this? What is your experience? Because you have quite a lot of hands-on experience with really cool hardcore projects.
Yeah, but you've almost mentioned all the aspects and all the points that I was about to talk about. Still, I would make an emphasis on the people. So whatever the model you're choosing, I mean, whether you're going to outsource it to a localization company or you're going to have your in-house team of linguists, translators, you need to focus on the people. I mean, a localization manager manages or a team of people who will be in charge of delivering the context, delivering the requirements to the translators who will be managing tasks, assigning tasks between the translators, doing time tracking and progress tracking. So again, we are in the AI era right now, and a lot of processes can be automated, but still it's all about the people. So when we are working with on a project with a customer, we at the very beginning we always try to make sure that there is a person in charge who we can get in touch to get the context, because another aspect is about localization, is that localization is all about the context. The context is the key to a good localization, because just by seeing the content, seeing the text, the strings, or just knowing some information about the product, you are not the owner of the product. So the product manager, the product owner, is the person who knows best about all the features, all the context, all the peculiarities and specifics of the content. And that's why we need, it might not be a log manager, it might be just a content manager, maybe a writer, a person who generates the content, just to help the translators, to help the log managers understand the context, to give them clear style guides, requirements, what they're supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do. So so my emphasis is the people, is the team that need either to manage localization or to help other people manage localization process.
You were talking about the team on the client
That's right.
side, right?
Yeah. That's right.
It's actually important at some point, as long as the product is very successful. It's in 15 languages. At some point, you will want to have a dedicated role of a localization manager, because a product manager is a very diverse resource. It covers a lot, right? Quite a lot of responsibilities, right? And because localization itself can grow into a separate role, you may want to think about what's the potential structure of the company, of the team, right? Is it going to be like a localization team? Is it going to be like a localization manager? Is localization going to be under marketing or under product or under the CTO? Sometimes it happens as well, right? So you want to look at it from the role and process perspective. Who's going to own this process? Because it's a process in itself. It's a very important process.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you just mentioned, Stas, you mentioned people. That's very important. How it's structured is very important. I want to touch a little bit. Another very important thing is it deals with tight deadlines. It deals with automation. So my best advice for any product manager is to ensure that your chief technical officer is involved, and the guy who is involved in CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous delivery process, the pipeline of building, the nightly builds, the releases, that the localization is an integral part of this process. I mean, the building localized builds should be automated as any aspect of software build. So this you can easily imagine that the translator can fix a line in your localization management system in 2 minutes, and then you have right away you have the build being built right away, and it already contains this updated stream. So this process must be built from the very beginning of the product development. This guarantees that you have no delays with the release. This is very important from technical.
It's actually a very good point. Thanks, Alex. You can actually take beyond that, especially in mobile, right? So in mobile, if you want to update localization, you probably need to have like a new release, right? Instead, what you can do is you can use an SDK, mobile SDK, on the fly delivery or over the air delivery of translations, right? Which pretty much allows you to, without re-releasing, right? Which pretty much allows you to download the latest translation from the localization platform and ship it to the users across the world, like in a matter of minutes, right? and you can either A/B test or upload or update your translations on the fly. It becomes very, very fast, right? So that's, I mean, there's quite a lot of really interesting technological solutions around that.
So maybe let me chip in, because obviously we talked about how complex this task can be, how we need to involve a lot of people, even managers that are responsible directly from translations. So let's talk about money. How do you measure the impact of those translations? How do you go to your highest level CEO and prove that all that work, all that effort translated to, well, sales, user engagement? You tell me, how would you sell the translation service?
It obviously boils down to the money, yeah, at the end, right? ROI. So one of my favorite probably topics in localization is A/B testing, especially mobile. And of course, it depends on the product, right? But if you can afford A/B testing, if you can set up A/B testing, I think it can really show you. Let's say if you're localized into German, if you're going to market in Germany, right? You localized your app into German, you make it available for half of your audience, and you just, for a week, you just measure whatever you can measure: conversions, right? Retention, daily active users, weekly active users, user feedback, and so on and so forth, right? So A/B testing is actually big when it comes to hypothesis, right? Confirming hypotheses. But there are also businesses where it's actually on the surface that purely by multiplying the number of languages by 10, you'll have 10x revenue. Those businesses, I call them highly scalable. An example could be a mobile game, right? Or some certain mobile apps. Or let's say there are companies that sell eSIMs, electronic SIMs, right? They can sell them globally, and they do not need to unlock market by market, right? So as long as they can sell their digital products globally, it's a no-brainer. Just make it 10, 20 languages, and you suddenly unlock new territories, new markets. Especially when this is coupled with traffic, user acquisition, and so on, which in itself also in turn needs to be localized. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So we touched on that before, but let's talk about the AI elephant in the room. And though machine AI translations used to be really bad, they are evolving, they are getting better, especially with ChatGPT and other LLMs. So how do you see AI and machine learning evolving, and what role will it play when considering the manual translations company?
I personally believe that you're rightfully saying that this is an elephant in the room. This is so obvious, and it's so obvious that AI LLMs, and before that, machine translation, neural machine translation, have been redesigning the landscape of the industry. At some point, or when this only started happening, your first natural reaction is, this is a threat, right? This is going to kill my business. Who am I going to sell to, right? Everybody's going to translate with ChatGPT. But on the other hand, I like to look at it as, let's say, as a concept of do more with less. In the beginning, we did have clients that told us, "Look, we're going to switch to ChatGPT because we don't see any point in using translators or humans." But within time passed, some of those clients returned back to us saying, "Look, it's not as easy as it sounds, right? You have to consider quite a lot. The quality is not there, especially when you're talking about very context-sensitive data or context-sensitive content, right?" So what's happening is that LSPs like ours, and we are among those, right? They're slowly transitioning to this human in the middle workflows, or AI in the middle workflows, where they play this role of consultants, right? How do I configure AI? What kind of AI, first of all, do I use for my product, right? Or for this language? It's not necessarily AI, actually. In some cases, for some domains or for some projects, neural machine translations, which are more deterministic, they actually work better. So you may end up having better luck or better translation quality by just configuring AutoML, feeding glossary, style guides, and so on, for a particular product, for a particular language pair, right? Then using ChatGPT, even prompt engineered, right? But in general, yeah, this is slowly becoming the role of the LSP, to consult, to build processes, to have this technology angle, customized LLMs, customized neural NMT engines, the entire workflow, the entire setup. And of course, you can't, I mean, you won't release your product into 10 markets just blindly trusting ChatGPT, right? You'll still have a certain degree of post-editing, reviewing, green lighting, or whatever. And this is what LSPs can actually offer. They have access to these professional eyes and hands of native speakers. So this is still very valuable assets. But yeah, in general, the angle of doing more with less. So it's not that clients have suddenly started spending less. They have started to translate more, right? If you have your website in 10 languages, you can suddenly localize your blog into 10 languages, because 3 years ago, localizing the blog would be like, I don't know, $1 million, right? Because it's quite a lot of content, right? It's very expensive. Now, build a workflow, pre-translate with NMT or LLM, throw in light post-editing here, and you're done. You're very good position from the SEO perspective, right? And it's also economically feasible to localize blogs in some cases, right? So what I'm saying is that product managers, businesses have more potential now using these tools, working with vendors, working with their own setups, own teams, and using leveraging all this tool set to achieve more. That's my take on it.
Yeah,
so we can say, okay, sorry, Alex, go on.
Sorry. just from a translator's point of view. So back in time, translators were using inside localization platforms, and inside their tools, they had so-called suggestions. When they do not translate sometimes from scratch, but they use some suggestions from machine translation, from
translation memory,
translation memory, and and having lots of different translation engines, so gave the translator those many suggestions. And now ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, so in almost every modern localization platform, the translator in his workspace, they already have those suggestions from LLMs. LLMs can take into account all the context surrounding and give the suggestion. But the trick with this suggestion is the final decision, what translation to use, whether it's consistent or right or wrong. It's a responsibility of the translator. So the LLMs, modern AI, they became the tools for translators in the first place. So that's one point from how it helps for the human translator, that now are becoming more like reviewers or like small decisions maker. This or that translation is used best. So this might take.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Again, since we are talking about a little bit of time travel, and really translation services are going nowhere. In fact, it sounds like translators using AI will replace the translators who don't, and sounds like Alkanost is going this way. Tell me how it all started. Why do go into translation business in the first place? Alex, I guess you'll tell me that.
Yeah, actually, this is the story of my life. So, when I've been a student, I somewhere read an article saying that if you're a software developer, you can build your software and sell it to the world. And I was like 19 years old, and I read that article, and since I've been software developer for during all my life. I decided that I build my product and sell it to the world. And in 19 years, I just did it and just uploaded to some internet websites. And to my surprise, I got the first order for $90.99 per my for one license of my software, and that was an eureka moment. And obviously, my native language is not English, but I translated my software into English, of course, because I knew that it's obvious that my market is global market, not local. And that time I was involved into a community of software developers like me. We were all building our products and selling them. And some of the guys from that community, they came to me and asked to help to translate their softwares also into English. So I helped, and then I just met a girlfriend who was a speaker of German, and she started to help translating into German, and people started to pay her money. I was making it for fun, but to her they were starting to pay money, and they handed those money through me because she didn't have a bank account. So I just gave her money and 2 quarters, and it just got some traction. And I described this experience in some newsletter somewhere. And surprisingly, some translators, other translators, they wrote to me and asked if they can join. So that the beginning of the story. And but then there was a pivotal point that happened. It was when some of our clients, they came to us and said, well, the German translation quality is not good. There are some typos, the users are just not happy. And that was just a pivotal point where I understand that with money, with the service you provide, comes responsibility. If you take money for a service, for the translation, it must be of high quality. And we changed everything. Every translator at that time, we switched to more professional, more expensive, but more professional. That was one of the pivotal points. Another one was when the localization platforms appeared. So that's very important thing, because it just gave us chance to grow, to translate more for more products, more languages, to manage it. Because the bottleneck was not on the market, but in our capacity of management, everything. That was one of the pivotal points back in time. So it was like 17 or maybe 15 years ago when the platform just started to emerge. Then the other pivotal point was the company. It started with only just me and my girlfriend. So 1 or 2 people. Now Elkanos is more than 100. The core team without any translators. The translators are many thousands of people. So another pivotal point was the maturity of marketing and sales. When we started to, we exhausted that community. So we wanted to grow and started to market, actually, to make sales, going to conferences, and we discovered the niche of game development that that's a good niche for localization. That was the another pivotal point. And another one. This is 20 years long story. So I'm just jumping. The third one, which gave us scalability, was when we wanted to automate and organize our workflows inside the company. I mean, setting tasks, giving tasks to translators, and receiving back the results, managing deadlines, managing quality. And we started to think about what software do we need to rule them all. And we tested lots of translation management systems that for translation agencies or translation bureaus, and we didn't find anything suitable for us, for our process, because our processes were so profound, so developed by the time that no software in the world could cover. And since we are developers inside, and this is a competitive advantage, that we are thinking, we started as software developers, started building products before localizing. This is not linguistics. This is development plus linguistics. And so when we tried to organize some software to manage everything, we decided to build our own. And we call it the app, and we've been developing it for more than 7 years already. And it just helps us to organize everything. And this gave us the opportunity to scale again. So one project manager could work now for like 15 clients per month, and that could be large projects, that could be smaller projects. But this software gives this leverage, this management. It's not the translation management. It's not the it's job management, task management, how we just organize the process, not the translation itself. We are platform agnostic, so we used lots of different platforms and tools to deliver translation to clients. They could come with platforms like Crowding, maybe Localize, Transfex, SmartCut, whatever. We work with every platform they want. So we're just platform agnostic, and this is our competitive advantage, that we do not bring vendor lock to our customers. They're free to choose. They're free to switch. This is total freedom for them. So it's no vendor lock. Back to the story. The pivotal point was creating this app, and it helps us a lot. And another pivotal point is now it's AI. It's AI, absolutely. We embrace it. We created a sub team inside Alkanost, which is dedicated to AI. We test every AI LLM engine that comes just the next day. We have developed our own benchmarks on our different types of contents, and against many languages. So we have built the quality index to assess the quality of how the translation engines give us. We've been deeply into prompting. Every localization platform now has the ability to integrate with to integrate the AI into localization into the localization workflow, and we are just if they release something like DeepSeek, they released like a few days ago, and we are now testing it because it's very hot. We just have a subunit that does this weekly. We have an internal newsletter that tells that what we've done with all those translation agents, or all those AI. And even I entered a school called Deep School. It's about LLMs, building LLMs from scratch. So it's mathematics, it's transformer architecture, it's lots of everything around this AI. I think that's a kind of pivotal point that would help us grow, because it just multiplies the value we can deliver to our clients. Just makes us 10x, not 10. Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. We'll have to wrap up very soon, but before we wrap up, I really need to ask about like your crown jewel success story, or if you can mention like the biggest computer games you translated. So I wonder if I played one of them. So the crown jewel of the value Alkanost delivered, and like the most popular video game you worked on.
The ones that you probably played are all under NDA, sadly.
Oh,
Unfortunately, yep.
Yeah.
so maybe was it to do with some gates in a fantasy world?
Potentially, but if I were to name it, you would recognize, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah,
crown.
I would like crown jewelry. There are some cases that we have published, and we took the permission to think do probably use it's not it's like a game, but they use probably AirLO eSIM cards when you go abroad, when you need internet. So this could be one of the biggest retail eSIM providers in the world, I would say. And also there is a company that also under NDA, but it's the biggest messaging, like video messaging platform in the world.
Entertainment video messaging platform, right?
Yeah,
entertainment video messaging platform.
Social,
whatever it could be. Whatever it could be, but we have had a team of more than 200 linguists working on the translation project. And there were 13 project managers just managing this product, one project. That's the universe of not only one app, but the universe of apps. So this is a kind of story I like most.
So you are ready to take on the biggest challenges there are, right?
Smaller ones as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And speaking of that,
scale.
how, if any of our viewers would like to get in touch and discuss translating their product or service, how do they get in touch with you?
I believe one could go on our website and leave this kind of fill out this pre-order form and just write there somewhere we're from BART, and this is automatically going to be like first class experience for them.
Awesome, thank you. I like to have this effect on people and services. And before we go, I'd like to hear a round table of like one piece of advice you'd like to give to product managers that listen to us and would like to take their product international. Maybe starting with Stan this time.
Well, so this is to me it sounds like not more localization related, but just a product related advice, a piece of advice. Well, first things first, and first of all, you need to feel passion, to love what you're doing, to love the product, just to know the exact value it's going to bring to the world, to the target audience. And probably if we're moving towards the localization part of the question, so that would be planning things carefully and planning things ahead. So that would be my small piece of advice.
Thank you.
And starting I just wanted to say that it never hurts to speak with vendors, potential vendors, like 3 or even 5 maybe, even if you are not sure whether you're going to be working with them. You can learn quite a lot from them. And the good ones, we are always happy to share, right? Even if there is no immediate opportunity. But that usually gives quite a lot of knowledge, right? At least to understand where you're at and where you need to do, where you need to move, right? And that would be my take. To speak with as many vendors as possible. Try to understand how they're different. Try to understand what's the next step potentially could be. And start today or tomorrow.
Well, depending on where you are, for me it's like 9 p.m. And Alex, what's your golden advice?
The golden advice that has been with me for like 20 years of development products. We have some development in Elkanos, some spin-off projects. We have lots of development of product development and management. So my best advice is to do some role playing. If you are building a product, if you work with the designers or developers, you imagine that you are your user, your Japanese-speaking user, and what you do, you have a problem, you go to Google or ChatGPT, you just ask for the solution, and there is an advertisement of your software, of your solution. It's Japanese. You click and you go to where did they go? What the journey to the Japanese website? Where the button download your software or install. Make this user journey to your product to this before buy and after the buy button most comfortable, most enjoying user journey. So just place yourself on the place of your user and go through all the user journey, and just removing the bottlenecks, removing the things that are not easy to understand, will lead you to the best product. So that's my that's my advice. Just to imagine that you're like a Japanese person going to buy and use your product. This really helps.
Hi, arigato then. And just to mention from my end, for like pure product management perspective, if you are a product manager of an international product in many countries, make sure to monitor your A/B tests and like behavior of users different as like separate in every country, because you might learn that some users in some country do stuff differently, which you can then adapt and grow into other countries and create better products, just because someone is using product in mass differently than you intended it to be.
And also that's very important to observe real users, do some corridor testing. If you are not able to imagine that you're a Japanese person going through all the user journey, you take your friend, just watch them how they do it, and you see lots of things. Just observing just real person using your product. Yeah.
Thank you, and gentlemen, this is all I had for you for today. Thank you for joining me on this lovely evening. Thank you for sharing all your insights. And my God, I never realized how many people need to work on like the biggest translations. That's a massive scale, and so many product managers. Whoa, that had to be a doozy. Thank you for helping the product managers make their products better and localized. And if you would like to jump on another live and discuss another translation topic, maybe some stories of the most exciting translations that are not under NDA, I'm happy to host you again. But in the meantime, keep developing as product managers, create better products that are tailored to your users, and that includes their languages. And thank you for attending. Thank you for all the guests that stayed with us until the end for this, I think, record long event for me, over 1 hour. Apologies, we had to start over because of my mistake. And thank you and good night.
Thank you, Bart. It was a pleasure. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care.